Well, good morning. As we're sitting here at LTV while I'm actually chewing some chocolate, if you forgive me for that, and it is Tuesday, November 14th, year 2023. Here with the Hello Hello Show, continuing with the tradition of public access and the tradition of the Hello Hello Show that's been on the air since 1980. That's how long we've been here. Of course, not to fail to mention the contribution by Fraser Dougherty, Francis Ann, and the likes of you out there that surely make it your business to enhance and fortify the concept of public access by your direct or indirect engagement concerning that concept called public access. Many times in the past, I sit here and I talk to you about the significance and importance of public access, and and I wonder to myself in between, I said, when am I going to run out of things to say regarding public access and, of course, the inclinations and the uh, expectations and aspirations and reservations and what all of these Asians, invasions and nations, um, how they join together and they create something incredibly firm and incredibly relevant to just about any mood, any state of mind. Speaking of countries, speaking of uh, continents, speaking of individuals, speaking of human beings, speaking of thinking creatures, speaking of political aspect, whatever you want to call it, and social and religious and artistic. I can't begin to tell you how lucky you should consider yourself if you're someone who creates. Forget about creating to earn a living or not, which is something nice to be able to do if you can at all. But in the same token, um, I don't know if I should say shield, uh, the kind that will make you feel safe next to also to become more aware of yourself as a person, yourself as a thinking individual, yourself as a created, in the kind of kabbalistic aspect of the coming is from the none, the infinity out of zero kind of thing, and the process of rejoicing and in realizing that actually you don't need to think twice before you kind of indulge in the happiness of achievements, in the satisfaction of engagement, and know that you can repeat it well, which is above all is something that in itself an incredible aspect of the process itself, your level of adaptation, um, um, you know. And maybe losing that edge of seriousness where it's not supposed to be there, because of course we take the process itself extremely serious. That's why we that's why we're capable of doing what we're doing. The group of artists that I know are so committed, it's not even funny. Sometimes you don't even want or even bother to check their art. It's like their energy in itself is suffice, is enough to give you an indication who this person is. We had an opening last week, and here at LGV, I met some artists, that since I curate the shows here, and there was the latest artist that we're showing actually, Justin um, um, Greenwald, uh, really good artist. I mean, I hardly knew anything about him. I knew just a little bit. He sent me some info, whatever. I said, "I want you in. I want you in." We made it happen in a matter of a couple of weeks. His work is here, and it's like like we know each other forever. So there was another woman in the crowd, and she's in the zone of sculptures and all this. So, and we were talking and about, and of course, I always want to include sculptures and whatnot. So I told her, "You're in," and she said, "What do you mean?" I said, "You're in, because you're in. That's it. You feel a snappy feeling of." I'm kind of investing in the person rather than in the product, even though I know that the product will be accordingly. It will be one will justify the other. So speaking of public access, I said to myself, I asked myself, how long is it before I will get tired of maybe repeating myself? Maybe I repeat, but then I'm realizing actually this repetition is not the repetition that is the kind that will cause people to lose interest to listen to you, but it's more like, I guess, progress. Yeah, repetition can be progress. That's how you uh, that that's how you spell. Yeah, that's how you spell growth. Almost like practice makes perfect. I think more like perfect practice makes perfect. So the fact that there is a concept like public access in itself is something that is really an imaginary, almost like somewhat unreal. And quickly enough, you realize that you're really the one who needs to kind of pour some substance and meaning into it, and introduce action, ability to mobilize yourself, and ability to take a living, breathing scenario and elevate it, and also create that kind of you so it's able to drink the distance that it consumes, or it consumes the distance of that kind of you know journey description, so to speak. And you know what? And even when I speak here, sometimes I don't quite understand really every word that comes on my. I understand every word, but I don't necessarily stop. I used to do it in the early years to try and make sense. Try and make sense, trapping yourself into a situation where you're ending up actually literally saying nothing. But not saying nothing because you have nothing to say. It's because you're just too caught up with that which is kind of politically correct, and you want to satisfying even those who are not in the room with you. Satisfying the world, and going out of your way to please, which is in itself is a good thing. So in conversations that I have with people, I always repeat myself saying, in the meanwhile, what is happening? In the meanwhile, what is going to happen? In the meanwhile, how are we going to go about it and be a part of that ongoing scenario that is purely artistic by nature, and B, we are included in that scenario, in that reality, in that journey, in that vessel, in that traveling kind of. Um, we want to realize that we are part of it first and foremost, and identifying the slowing down factors. The slowing down factors are so slippery, elusive. Like it's here and suddenly it's not, and maybe it was never there to begin with. So it's um, so it's an incredible measurement tool. So in the early stages when I was getting caught, and that's actually something that I identified with other people that I knew in this situation, this moment where you could have done without that particular thing that led you to where you are, which is not where you necessarily want to be or think that it's good for you. And then you learn, and then you remember it. And the next time around, when you're approaching it, you don't even wait until it hits you. When you see that you're approaching it, you you roll into that mode of plan B. You know what to do. You expected it. You prepared yourself. So suddenly, just a slight move to the right, and it kind of bypasses you. You bypass it. It's just suddenly this terrifying scenario is over, and it is going there. You're going there, and every second that goes by, the distance is becoming greater and greater. So that distance really taking you back to the same situation, reality that you face here. It's just that it's being transported, and eventually it will be finding this particular moment somewhere else, which is not doesn't it's not significant to anything, and then you kind of find yourself being able to start in more than one place, initiating and picking up where you left off in any kind of location, because the concept is so vivid and so compatible. And the preparations are by nature very, very simple, Yeah, in the early days when I was sitting in my studio and thinking that I can just relax because it's a part of the equation, and maybe it is, I didn't think in those days I realized that I earned it, that I can just sit around and say, okay, well, maybe I deserve to rest for half an hour and then stare at my paintings or my space, my studio. And of course, it went on like this for quite a while because I convinced myself that that's the right thing to do until I realized that, okay, if I spare myself from this, especially from the times that is not really much needed, so I can cut 8 out of 10 and be left with two important encounters that will be serving just as much as 10 encounters would. And that's spelled saving your energy. That's spelled conserving your energy. That's spelled smartly arranging your time and dispersing those crucial moments for crucial things for your uh, meaningful awareness, and the fact that yes, even though as much as you allowed things to happen freely and to welcome improvisation and to yearn for abstract and all of that, still nevertheless there is a chain of events, a chain of thoughts, an evolutionary process, a, a live heritage forming, a forming heritage live, a forming live heritage, and you're like then pausing for a second and realizing this is the time to introduce art into the space that you've been thinking you've been creating art for a long time, but then you really didn't think that you are. And then that moment came, and there's just a go ahead thing. And if you're not ready, you're not ready. So you're going to be able to capture maybe 5% of it by the time you realize what's really taking place. While people like myself would be more like, at the end of this particular important encounter, you realize you have like 98 in your hands, 98 out of 100, 98 captures. It's unbelievable. So, but still, that's something need to give in order for paintings to be painted and poems to be written and musical instruments to be played, and just the thoughtfulness towards compositions of any nature, you know, the written notes pad for the variety of musical instruments, the all the way from notepads to iPads and fingers clicking or pens writing or pencils drawing, uh, is actually that process that will give birth to poetry, and then you can talk about that for hours anyway. What gives to what, how come, in what scenario, what gives more, what gives less, what is resisted, what is denied, what is accepted. There are a million things. And then once you think you're done, you can invent the whole process all over again. And then, of course, the canvas is in front of you. The canvas in front of you will be like, okay, I look at it. I in the early ages will say, okay, I think this is layer number 3, and you're already overwhelmed because you don't know better, because you don't know enough. You know a lot, but you don't know enough, to be calmer and when and and happy according to to what you're supposed to read on the surface and say, actually, I'm doing well, good for me. So sitting in front of the canvas and 3 layers are already overwhelming. Then you're contemplating. Maybe you introduce the fourth layer and say, and call it a day, or maybe even call it a day right now with that, 3 coats. I mean 3 layers. Uh, Whereas 10 years later, 3 layers wouldn't even be the earliest attempt of scratching any kind of surface. Is already 7 layers, and then you realize quickly enough that you don't even relate to layers other than the basic quiet knowledge, uh, sense of importance that exists, pre-exists. You don't have to think about it, do with it. It's just joining you. It's like a shadow of your body, and the uh, it's so therefore there's no counting that's taking place. There's no like keeping track of that many layers. I mean, there's some paintings of mine that I created one painting. I think it was in 1998. It was a few years after I started painting, and I did a drip. And I did a drip in a time where I didn't really know kind of who Jackson Pollock was, and that's a great story because I learned from this story until nowadays. I mean, I knew the Jackson Pollock, and I lived in East Hampton, and I lived in East Hampton for many years. And may, maybe after the fact, I realized maybe I should have known it just a little more. But I knew of Jackson Pollock that there's someone, an artist, and evidently famous or popular or whatever, and he drips and he does things. Never ever in my life that I even looked into any of his paintings. Maybe if I did, I didn't know that it was his. So surely enough, I never had the chance to observe it close enough for long enough to say, like this. Nothing. So in 1998, I found myself doing my own drip, my own splatter, my own whatever it is that you want to call it, really. And after the 50th, 60th layers, I started only then thinking to myself, my God, actually, if I keep it up like this, another 30, 40 layers and get into the 100, 110 layers, maybe then I would realize that actually I created something fantastic. And then I began to think about how I don't, how much I need to abandon things that I don't use if I was to choose this process of action, this choice of action. Uh, so it's not like you're never going to need it ever, but I mean, for a while you won't need it. So it will be very advisable and smart to take it and just put it aside and then have it at your disposal if you need to reintroduce it to the equation. And so then I accomplished it. I accomplished it. I accomplished it. I have it. So, I mean, if you ask me how many coats, I will tell you, well, this is 100 coats, and I won't be mistaken. I'm actually underestimating a little bit. So, in that sense, you want to be able to learn a lesson from just about the most trivial aspect of that process called painting, of course, artistic process. Um, uh, to draw the relevance of how it is that next time around when you find yourself in the immediacy of the moment in your studio and you uh, about to painting in the meanwhile, whatever you call it, active, hands-on, then you would be able uh, to let a few of those ingredients, such information that you learned, that you paid attention to, that you thought the time will come that you can implement the usefulness of making sense of what it is that you just learned or picked up or understood or unlocked. And those would be like the seeds that were planted towards my realization that I can just create. I can I out of a desire to paint and to do well and to please and to definitely try not to make a fool of myself and to introduce a consistent, constant level that requires some kind of respect and admiration towards the person who does it. And that would be me, for example. So people won't think you're like the best in the world, but they will say, oh, he is a capable person. And you do that through just a mountain of many, many wonderful encounters, independent and individual by nature, that speak up that language and form themselves into uh, little complete accomplished items that never go away. It's in your library. Your library is wherever you are. It's not the location you need to travel to in order to examine the deposits of your library. Wherever you go, this is it. It's never forgotten. It's all put to use. And then, in my case, I didn't learn this factor fast enough. I mean, eventually, I got over and through that hurdle challenge and benefited from it incredibly. Later, after the fact, realized that I could have shortened the process of self-inflicting pain, so to speak, indirectly speaking. Of course, I would have done that, but the following time, if I was to encounter, I would kind of take a pause a little earlier in order to write the left a little kind of more extra times, and then realize maybe there's some minute changes to be implemented immediately, and then suddenly there's just like suddenly you're like 12 cylinder, like suddenly you're just like bursting open. But also it teaches you about decency, and that decency is like you don't have to rock and shake earth in order to whatever to declare your whatever, come with your morning realization message, uh, declaration, whatever it is. I mean, we of course always want to listen, but we have zero tolerance for noise. Tone it down, calm approach, kind of slower. Speak your mind. Give us a description. Excite us. Uh, you know, a provoke us. We need to think. We need to be challenged. So that crowd you will have available always, whenever you'll show attempt on the service, meaning engagement by initiation, by saying I am doing it. It's like by the time you get into the D, you're actually already in the midst of it. I am do inside. The vessel is going. So of course we take these things and you're trying to find the relevance to life, to livelihood, to functioning, to waking up in the morning, to when you wake up, to when you go to sleep, to how much you sleep, what kind of sleep, what do you dream, how do you work, what's your work ethics, what's your nature of friendships, and what's the family structure, and what's the culture, what's the story, what's the creativity? What's the poems? Is it prose? Is it storytelling poetry? Is it short verses? Is it haikus? Is it proverbs? Is it aphorisms? Whatever. You you want to be able to be complete in the sense of accepting and welcoming all that. And that spells happiness. It spells being at ease with the greatness of life, kind of thing. And so nobody wants to notice that you're around, because you just kind of either move too fast, move too much, and maybe just like kind of uneasy with yourself a little bit. So that will be noticeable until the edge of town. Everybody in his ankle will know that you're coming. And And the system itself, long before anyone intelligent opens his or her mouth to tell you, to preach you, to teach you, whatever, you're already seeing it by the nature of Mother Nature, by the nature of that natural process that's unfolding in front of your eyes. It's already telling you a story. It's already telling you, oh, you're going this way. Okay, let me break you into the 1, 2, 3 ABCs, and kind of somewhat always like a crash, tiny, snappy crash course in the horizon. It's already always being implemented all over the place, very quietly, very efficiently. Say, yeah, oh, so you're going this way? Okay, I got some news for you. And when you break someone in, that happens to be yourself, you realize immediately that breaking yourself into that is making you able to show your face, show your head, show your entity out from the ground in the distance, that even a in the distance, that you can just like spiritually envision that indeed you made that much progress and that much. And for you it will be, this is the order of things. This it's really fast, but you don't feel the speed. It's really vibrant and maybe borderline aggressive, and you won't feel the ruggedness, and it will be also intimidating, on all levels, spiritual all the way to social. But you won't feel the wrath of the characteristic of that which is a given in the understanding of people, that this is a part of life, and this is therefore wherever you go, whatever you do, however, it's always there. It's just accompanying you in a very unique way, not like your shadow. Your shadow will be another entity in itself that accompanies you, but this will be like, I got you covered. I'm here to remind you. I'm here to remind you of what you have taught me to remind you. What you have taught me to understand that I need to remind you, maybe others. So you have that, and you have also the fear factor that maybe you're just like, will be caught in a moment where we just want to chill, really want to chill, and not in the mood to be so sophisticated and so like trying to impress the world, trying to remind the world that already knows that you exist, that you're actually here. What if that happens? And this is a scary scenario for people like us. Scary scenario, because that would spell potential derailment of, of that structure for the sake of your psyche. It is spelled like a composition, like a skeleton, like a diagram of naked infrastructure, hidden infrastructure. So this, there is a something like this, and of course, in the process of trying to kind of play it cool and like make it look as if it is a by the way thing, even though you're creating something enormous and crazy and making people believe that, how come you're not losing your mind, but you're quiet and you this? Yeah, maybe, but um, at least if indeed eventually you're gonna fall, at least you know how to fall. So you can prevent a lot of damage from taking place. You're going to get hurt, but you're not going to get hurt so much that it will prevent you from continuing, which will be actually a real disaster if you cannot continue. But rather, it's another kind of rough moment where you took a shot, you delivered the shot, but somehow this rolls here and you roll there. So speaking of public access, if you were to be a part of a concept like this, of an establishment like this here in the United States of America, that happens to be the home for thousands, if not tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of entities throughout the United States of America by way of public access, by way of telling you, listen, this is the concept, and you have to just come join, fill in the blanks, interpret your personality. Nobody is coming between you and your personality and your desire and your willingness to cope with that desire to make it real. We're just supporters. We're just kind of giving you, you need another push, you're getting that push. You need some help rationalizing, deciphering, you get rationalization and deciphering. This is the beauty of it. So if you're a part of it, like, you can be a part of it once a week, once a month, once a day. Immediately you will realize that quickly enough you actually start realize new things that make sense, that leaving less and less doubt about the nature of your engagement with this concept. So it is the 14th day of November on Tuesday morning here with the Hello Hello show here with the LTV at the east end of Long Island. And my name is Haim Mizrahi. We have a show, ongoing show, a part of the monthly tradition for group art shows with Justin Greenwald, Chris LeCur, and myself for display here at LTV Studios on the 75 Industrial Road in Wainscott throughout the month of November. And by the way, next month, for the month of December, Steve Lotion is going to be with us for a change, with somewhat of a full body of work by Steve Lotion. And let me share with you, I think he's such an incredible artist for so many reasons I can't even begin to tell you. But it shows in his work. And I urge you to make it your business to find yourself visiting here in the month of November, or before that, of course, because there's always art on the walls, and you get to know the work by Steve Lotion. You won't regret it. And of course, there's the freedom for us to be able to just show artists. We're not money hungry. We just operate on zero. So 0 minus 0 plus 0 remains 0. There's nothing exchanged hands other than just the greatness of being down to earth and low key. And then suddenly you're ready to show the people. I had a conversation with I remember with my late friend Michael Kinigan, and he was an incredible mentor, a wonderful, solid, tough, sensitive artist. I learned a lot from him and whatnot, and so I told him, we were like chatting about art shows and art exhibitions. And I remember those days I have the throwaway cameras, the kind that you can buy at CVS with 24 exposures. You buy it for like $12. You take 24 shots, and you bring it back, pay $10, $20. 2 weeks later, they send you 24 prints. Ancient. That was 10 years ago, maybe more, 12 years ago. So I had 3, 4, 5 cameras, throwaway, brand new in there. Exciting for me it was, actually. So in the midst of conversation with Michael Kinigan, I told him, look, it's so simple. It's so simple to create something meaningful. Something that no one in a million years will be able to figure out how you did it. Maybe how. But why and what for and how come? No one will know. Only you. So he says, what do you mean? I said, you see these cameras here? What do we have here? We have, let's say, 4 4 times 24 is 96. Let's just say that I'm just going to go and take 96 shots. I'm going now. And I'm deciding that A, I'm going. B, I'm going for an hour. Go and come 1 hour. C, by the time I come back, I had already taken 96 shots. Then, without any hesitation, take these 4 cameras and send it in right away. So you don't have to waste time because you want to get it within 10 days, 2 weeks, fine. So my friend stops me and says, wait a second, you said you took 96 shots. What did you photograph? I said, I just walked around. I had the camera in my hand, and I didn't think like I'm going to now shoot 24. You know, I didn't hear myself say I'm going to do something. I knew that I'm going to take pictures, but I didn't hear myself in that preconditioning factor that becomes like a that particular thing that everyone waits for. Otherwise, nothing can start type of thing. But rather, and then 10 minutes into my walk, I realized that I took 24 shots, and I really, really, really wasn't aware what it is that I did. I just knew that the extension of everything that I kind of was wishing for connected with the tip of my finger. And it wasn't cliche at all, as much as it was extremely cliche. It wasn't trivial at all, as much as it was the most trivial that it can ever be. So I walked here, I walked there, whatever, and I knew that I had to come back. By the time I came back, I realized that I had 5 more left in camera number 4. So that means I took 91 pictures already. So then I said, screw it. And I went like 5 images. 10 days later, I get those prints. I take those prints and I admire them. And I create 40 collages, but not cutting anything, just simply taking the 96 and creating 40 collages, while I have 40 frames of 24 by 24 that you can get for $5 each. Really nice looking with black border, whatever, very basic. So you have $200 that you spend on 40 frames with the mats, very basic mats. And you create 40 collages, immediate collages, with just a drop of glue behind the mat, and you let it sit for 15 minutes, you tack it, you make sure the glass is clean, you put it, and one by one, you close the frames. But 4 or 5 hours into the process, you have 40 24 by 24 collages made out of 96 images that you shot in 1 hour and costed you about $60. And then you already have a date somewhere. Let's say Ashwa Hall for that sake. And you take this 40 pieces of 24 by 24, put on display and hang it really very nicely and meticulously while you already have the invitation to send to 500 people and tell them, hey, welcome to a solo exhibition of so-and-so, of some photography, somewhat alternative by nature. You're invited to enjoy, to celebrate with us and all this, and people will come and they will see 40 consistent, strange, bizarre, wonderful, weird, meaningless, meaningful, mysterious. People will find themselves not exactly knowing what's going on, other than the fact that they know there's quite a bit of art here. Quite a bit of him. So they want to say something, they want to express themselves, but they take their time, because the more they look around, they realize there's more to it than the eye can meet. Now, this is the beginning of the ability of people to describe what this planet Earth and the human beings that live in it is all about, are all about, it all about. the nature of nature itself, the mother nature of mother nature itself, the mother nature of nature itself, the nature of mother nature itself, type of thing. And you don't necessarily approach anyone or make a big deal of anything. Yeah, you welcome people. Hey, hello, this. You don't walk around even say you're the artist. Those who know you know you. Those who will find out, they will find out. And people will go around. And if you make sure to tell them only one thing, mainly, please write your names and comments in this book before you leave, then that's a feast for later, believe me, because I went through it myself hands on. And the more time people spend, the more intimidated they feel, because they're allowing themselves to observe something much longer than they thought they would and much longer than they used to, while they usually used to just can't wait to say something that will pretty much dismiss what they're seeing and maybe describe it or belittle it or any otherwise with not that much kind of justification or ability to be entitled to do so. And you just keep on indulging in observing people. So what did you do? Paid a couple of $100 with an idea, and then you invited people. Maybe, you got a little bit of help here and there, not much. You put it together, you send invitations, you made that event happen. People will never forget it. Never forget it. And the next one you're going to do will be just being playful with strokes, whether it's brush strokes, pencil strokes, anything strokes. Getting those, go to Michael's, and for $100 you can get 50 mats of 20 by 20 cardboard mats kind of thing that you can actually immediately draw or paint or do whatever it is that you decide to do. Quickly enough you realize that the subject matter is not important at all. What am I going to do is not important at all. What you're doing is not important at all. The fact that you're doing it is the most important thing. The fact that you're actually doing it prevents it from ever being ugly or unappealing or dismissible. It's all about kind of keeping up with the promises that you promise yourself in order to in order to in order to at some point by the end of the day realize that actually you put it in place and actually you erected it and actually you're presenting it. And then you invite people, and then they come, and then they see a full body of work. Nothing really out of the ordinary, just kind of 40, 50 squares that someone just bothered to do this. Maybe a little yellow and some pencil and writing. Doesn't matter. It's there. You look at the totality of it, and you're a little scared because you realize that you can't rush the judgment of any kind, even saying that it's nice. Nevertheless, saying that it's anything other than nice, but anything, take your time because you realize the moment is stronger than you, the observant. The moment is stronger than you, and someone in a very trivial fashion created that moment for you to experience. And this moment, you are at the disposal of someone else. You don't even know who it is, but you earn and own the moment, and of course, therefore, you can afford to extend it forward and to show it to people, share it with people. And then you go to number 3. You decide to go out with a third solo exhibition of something artistic. And in that sense, you play a game with yourself. a game that you invented, a game that it is not important even what the rules of the game are. It's just a game. As long as you can somewhat remain as close as possible to this game and loyal as possible to this game from beginning to end. It can be 10 minutes, it can be 10 days. But you know the drill. You know that you need to be trusted by the process itself, by the surface itself. You know that you need to be predictable, effective, and also responsible, and to be expected of to be a top-notch individual that when you say certain things or when you promise certain things, when you plan certain things, it usually happens, and it usually happens in the time and the fashion that you have set it up to be. So now you play a game to create show number 3, exhibition number 3. And again, exhibition number 2 did not cost you more than $300. Yes, you rented a gallery, maybe a few people bought 2 squares of yours and all this, and you made $800. So that $800 would pay for the rental of the gallery and for the whatever boards and some acrylic paint that you did, or maybe not, whatever. That's how simple it is. Then number 3, you thought of certain things that were very, very intimate and very private. I mean, in the artistic process per se. I mean, not personally as a human being that wonders about the world and the condition of the world and the condition of mankind, which you do anyway, regardless. But you do it all the time because you're the one who's not making a big deal out of anything. This big dealness is happening constantly on daily basis in your life. That's true. So then you invite for exhibition number 3, and you play a game, and that game is a game that you invented yourself, and you want to play through the thing that will be defined and confined and defined, and eventually see some kind of a light, the light of day, the light of any kind of light, but it will be on display. It will be on some kind of a simple, straightforward, down-to-earth process and surface. And you wouldn't have to invent or reinvent anything about who you are and what you are in order for that to yield to you and to be a part of the result that actually showing its face in a very early stage of the process. So you kind of have a point of reference, a guideline. What is it to expect? So you kind of really realizing quickly enough that you're ahead of the game because you're aided. Something aids you. Someone aids you. Someone favors you. Someone believes in that you deserve the help. You deserve the push. You're someone that is worthwhile investing in you, in the qualities as a human being, as a person that you are. And then, of course, if to mention your art, you're actually a pretty good artist. And you invite people, and people come in, and they see about 20 paintings that are 4 by 5 feet, 20, that's been created with, if if one was to think that you can just take these basic colors and do very basic things in a very basic fashion, in a very bulky approach, and you would never think that it's really will be approved in the mind of the capable individual that calls himself or herself an artist in their own domain, immediate vicinity, that's called that immediate space where they create and take it seriously and think it's a good idea. But because you are looking in it from the aheadness of the future, facing towards the present, and actually walking against the rhythm that pulls you away from the present to the future, but you're managing somehow, is just that really slow down. I mean, you're really approaching towards yourself very, very slowly. And when you do that, you remain with you back to the present towards the past. And you go sideways 90 degrees and you watch either south or west. south or west, south or north. And the crowd deciphers and realizes that there is definitely a theme that brings everything together in the way that they experience it to be. So they're so alienated from an intelligent conclusion, and that's exactly the way I can describe it, that they just kind of walk around like pretending like life is lovey-dovey and this is a great moment and a great time and a great place to be. But with the corner of their eyes, they're watching you because in their mind now this is time number 3 only. This is the first year. The corner of their eye registering to their brain and saying, all this he did. Now, really, 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 they know that it's not a big deal. They know because they know these observers are skilled and artists themselves, but they already went through that. Now they so quickly found themselves in a position, in a point, with the way they feel towards a certain person, artist, in a way that they never did before. They don't even know how it happened. And even if they knew, they really have no capability to stop this some form of avalanche. So, because in their mind, this display and this person that is responsible for creating this display cannot, under any circumstances, be considered as a loser or up to no good individual or good for nothing kind of thing. It's just not a possibility even. So marching towards the fourth one, and what is the fourth one? It's the same. Number 3 cost $500 plus $1,100 to put together. And you sell one painting. Let's just say, I'm just guessing, $3,500. So you sold one painting. You did it snip snap. You paid the expenses. You made $2,000, and it's really not about not about money. And then you feel like that you're going to take a break, and the break itself will be the contents of the 5th or the 4th or whatever it is. It's in the early stages. So now you're sending invitations and you're gathering the dates and the place, and you sit in your studio and you want to tear the moment apart. You want to display a very unique style of freedom and daring and courage and guts and creativity and eye for color and composition, a combination of so many good things, very simple, very down to earth, very basic by nature, but so much, the gathering of so much. You want to tear reality apart, but you're not going to tear reality apart because nobody would really see you do it. But you're actually doing it, and you actually don't know until you're really beginning to know that you're actually doing it, while the crowd don't know that you're doing it. But it's been done, and then boom, again, the people show up into the gallery and they see this show that for them looks like so time consuming that now they're intimidated because this ability of that individual jumped so high so quickly, and they realize this is deep into the 4th, 5th encounter with this artist, and they can't believe that they didn't form an artistic opinion about him, because usually these people will end up making you feel like shit even when they're good. Just imagine those who don't care will just make you feel awful about without even coming across as if they're doing that. And they will not shy away from placing a very intelligent opinion and thinking that they know. But this is a whole different ballpark. This is a whole different world. This is a world where they know once they open their mouth, they'll be they will be dismantled by wisdom from the other end. I mean, they know they stand no chance. They got to make friends with this new reality. So now they come to the fourth, fifth exhibition of that artist that they didn't even get themselves to bring themselves to a point where they give some kind of a, sort of a description of what they think, what do they feel about his art. And they stand there and they know this friggin' MF is out there. Bum. And what is it that makes them feel this way? Not really the result of meticulously examining his art with full tolerance and time available to zoom in and really look deeply into what's going on. And then, therefore, then form an intelligent conclusion, so to speak, and spread it and send it forth. They will feel this way, but not to due to zooming in, but due to high level of intimidation, being intimidated in a way that it's scary, but it's more than scary. It's kind of freaking and scary. Freaking scary and freaky. It's almost like, wait a second, just let me make sure I'm not bumping into it, because it seems like it's gonna, like a stun gun. It was like, you know. I'm okay, that's good. 1 second, I need to do that. Let's see. What do we have here? So anyway, I mean, I can't believe it. I just completed an hour here. The only thing I can tell you and share with you, I'll continue that. I promise I'll continue that. This is just exhibition number 4 or 5. And it's almost like an autobiography. And I think I'm in the number 80 or 90 solo exhibitions and all that. And then if I get to explain to you what 90 means in the face of having 5 and already feeling so explosive, that's a joy actually, and maybe intolerable and unbearable, but in a good way. We're going to be here tomorrow, as much as we were here yesterday, and as much as we here this morning, Tuesday morning, November 14th, year 2023, here with the Hello Show. And just know that we love you and we know out there and we appreciate your effort. God bless.